What's up? Good morning. Thank you for sharing this big space with us today, here on the land of the Powhatan people, in the former capital of the Confederacy, in Virginia, which is the site of the first permanent, if there is such a thing, English settlement in the New World. I'm Tim. You already know that. That's why it took me a second to remember where I was. I am the mitigation specialist at the Fauquier and Rappahannock County Office of the Public Defender. That's in Warrenton. Anybody know Warrenton? Okay. You live there. Okay. Do you like it? Yeah. All right. It's a beautiful place. It's about 60 miles west of D.C. There's several ways to describe the work that I do now as a mitigation specialist, but my favorite one came from one of our brilliant attorneys. I promise it wasn't Chad. She said, Tim is the guy that makes us look good. I'm also an AmeriCorps Alums Amplified 2026 cohort member, which is challenging to say. AmeriCorps alum 2025, Winchester Office of the Public Defender. That was with Recovery Corps. There should be people from Recovery Corps right here. Recovery and Reentry Specialist, Recovery Navigator, Recovering Alcoholic, June 30th, 2023. Son, student, teacher, traveler, big talker, speaker, victim and victimizer, slow suicide survivor, and we came with passion, purpose, precision, and poise about action, service, the knowledge, and the noise, with sights set on the systems designed to destroy, enslave, or forever ignore us. And by the end of this here, I hope you will all be speaking for us. In the meantime...
Hello, everyone. My name is Abigail Rittenour. I'm the Reentry and Recovery Supervisor with the Virginia Indigent Defense Commission. I am also a first-generation American, and I am the daughter of a child marriage survivor.
So, what Abby cannot tell you, but I can, is that she is also one of the most impressive human beings I have ever met. And I have met a lot.
My name's Chad Wellins. I was previously the Senior Assistant Public Defender in Winchester and Front Royal. I just got a promotion a couple weeks ago to Deputy Public Defender. I've been doing this work for a decade or so, and my background is I was a middle school and high school teacher prior to going to law school. I worked in the construction industry. I'm a proud father of 2 great kids. I'm a cancer survivor, and I was adopted as a child.
He's right about the kids. What Chad probably won't tell you, but many of his clients absolutely will, is he is also the best damn defense attorney they ever met. And believe me, some of them, they met a lot. So that's us. Hello. How many of y'all here are from Virginia? Pretty much everybody, almost everybody. Okay. I was born in Virginia some years ago. My mom came from England in 1959 at about 20 years old. My father was from New York. I was born in Virginia because he was working in Newport News. Does anybody know what kept those English people that came here way back in the day, long before my mom did? What kept them staying here in Virginia, in Jamestown? Tobacco, right. So, what is tobacco? What? A drug. Okay. Before my people and people like me took tobacco from this side of the world, brought it over to other parts of the world to pervert for pain and profit. Tobacco was just called a medicine here. Still is. Medicine is another synonym for drug. Tobacco is also the substance that over 400 years or so has caused more preventable death than anything else on the planet. Mainly because it has inside of it something called what? Nicotine, which is a psychoactive substance, which is another synonym for drugs, which is what brings us all here today. So my people have been running drugs and gold back and forth since we stepped off the boat. After the tobacco, we moved on to opium, and we are still in the dope game. While we were at it, we laid the foundations for what became the legal and financial and euphemistically known as healthcare systems in this country. These are systems which were designed to produce and perpetuate poverty while we imprison and punish the poor. So the program that we're here to describe for y'all today is an example of a successful effort to change one of those systems from within, to create the first and only role in the Virginia criminal justice system whose sole purpose is to treat addiction like the fatal disease that it is. So, how do we do that? Well, we need a division of a great man named Tim Coyne, who is recently retiring from the main office here in Richmond. We need to work very hard, obviously. We need to get organized. And if you want to get something done these days, you need a lot of what? Money, right. So here's Abby to talk about all that.
All right, so once the opioid epidemic became identified, or more so a more mainstream topic, there was a wave of settlements that followed involving distributors and manufacturers of opiate medications. From these settlements, there was a large sum of money that was broken up and distributed throughout the nation, and the Commonwealth of Virginia was lucky enough to get some of that. So in 2021, the Virginia General Assembly established the Opioid Abatement Authority, often referred to as the OAA. So the OAA oversees and distributes the funds that the Commonwealth of Virginia received. There are 3 major settlements that resulted in the funds received for Virginia, with one being McKinsey, which resulted in about $13 million for Virginia, McKesson Cardinal Health and Amerisource Bourdon, which was about $230 million, and Janssen Pharmaceutical at about $53 million. There were also additional settlements involving distributors such as Kroger, Teva, CVS, but these are the 3 primary we discuss. So once it was announced that the OAA was established and that they would begin accepting grant applications, the Virginia Indigent Defense Commission, which is really just a fancy way of saying public defender, we requested funding in order to place recovery navigators at select public defender offices. Due to our funding, which was granted from the OAA, we are limited to only working with our clients who are identified as having opioid use disorder. We determine this using the DSM-5, and while we're not diagnosing, we're simply assessing. If they answer yes to at least 2 of the criteria listed for OUD within the DSM, they qualify for services with the navigator. So we selected which offices would be a part of this program where there was a high amount of opioid deaths, a high opioid caseload, and where the opioid death rate exceeded the state average. In our first year of the program, we had 7 participating offices. In our second, we had 15. We ultimately only placed 7 navigators, but it was a sign of growth within our program. And in our current year, we have 14 offices participating with a recovery navigator, and we also have a client advocate with an organization called Partners for Justice at our Richmond location, but it's a role that's slightly different from what our recovery navigators do.
So, Recovery Corps. How many people have heard of Recovery Corps? Okay. So if you haven't heard of Recovery Corps is a division of AmeriCorps, which is a national service organization, program, agency, all that. And Recovery Corps is specifically dedicated to people in recovery, serving people in recovery and people in recovery in service. Katie Thompson, when I met her on video conference, Zoom, whatever it was, she was the coach or mentor that was hiring in my area. Or it's not hiring, is it? It's not a job. It's a service position. But recruiting. Anyway, she gave me the position. And now she, this brilliant human being, is the executive director of Virginia Programs. Jordan is also here, and Elena, who I never got to meet. Am I saying your name right? Thank you. In person. They are here from Recovery Corps. They'll be sitting out there at a table with a bunch of purple things on it. If you're interested in anything that we have to say today, please talk to them. And this information you can see. Clearly, they serve a lot of areas all over the state of Virginia. So check it out.
There's various ways that the recovery navigators serve the public defender offices. But I like to split it up into two sort of categories, with the first being recovery navigation. So this is when they're going to be helping our clients with applying to and hopefully getting accepted into treatment programs, helping transition between incarcerated Medicaid and citizen Medicaid, seeking with education, making referrals for treatment programs, substance counseling, mental health counseling, MAT, applying for public assistance programs, lots of ways that we can help them during their incarceration or during reentry. But the second category, and is what really makes the recovery navigators distinct, is that peer support. So they're going to be setting realistic goals, scheduling action steps to walk through that, tracking the client's recovery capital on a biweekly basis, using motivational interviewing and lots of other skills to help encourage them through their recovery and maintaining sobriety during incarceration, and helping them identifying strengths and encouraging them through these challenging times.
All true. The difference between the program that we're here to describe and peer recovery specialists or peer recovery support workers in other contexts is that when you're working in the PD office, you're working with people who are involved with the criminal justice system, obviously. Mainly, we meet people when they are incarcerated. So we meet them in the jails. We speak to them over the phone in the jails. And for 100% of them that I met, that was the first time they had ever met anybody from this agency who was there as a peer to work on recovery, navigating, and peer support. So that can make an incredible difference for the clients or participants, as they're known in Recovery Corps. It also makes a big difference in the office. And here to talk about that is Chad.
So there's about 4 things that I assume in my practice that I think the recovery navigators have a lot of appreciation for coming in. They don't need a lot of training on that. One is, I never have enough time to do everything I'd like to for a client. That's number one. Number two, if the government statistics are anywhere in the ballpark, which in this case I think they probably are, 4 out of 5 people that are incarcerated have a substance use disorder or a mental health issue or both. The other thing that plays in is that our clients are almost always of some adverse background. Tim and I were just talking about the other day how one client we had was talking about the women on her pod in the jail, and every single one of the women on that pod had been sexually assaulted, almost certainly as a child, if not as an adult. So that's the kind of backstory people are coming from. And then the fourth thing is that going through the criminal justice process is at the very least stressful and difficult, and usually is traumatic in some way. Being incarcerated is traumatic. The sort of not knowing what the outcome's gonna be and dealing with the consequences of whatever's being handed down by the judge, all of that can be traumatic for people. So as I see it, there's sort of 2 things happening simultaneously. One is people are going through the process of the judicial system. But where the recovery navigator comes in is they're focused solely on recovery. And that's unique. No one else is really focused on recovery, because recovery can go up and down, have peaks and valleys, and that's totally aside from what's happening in their criminal justice process, which can be going good, bad, or indifferent. The other thing is that the recovery navigators have more time. They have substantially lower caseloads, and they're usually talking to clients every 2 weeks, if not more frequently. They have the lived experience of being an addict or alcoholic themselves, so they can come in at an angle that other people in the office may or may not have in terms of their background experience. Let's see. One thing that was super helpful in working with Tim is we had 2 incidents where people were running into serious safety concerns while they were incarcerated, and they didn't want to talk about it very openly, or it took a lot of time and prying to get them to actually open up and describe in detail and with specifics what is actually going on. And Tim was able to get enough information to me to go to the court and ask the circuit court judge to move the client to a different jail and get out of that situation, which we...
It's hard to do, by the way, to get a circuit
successfully
court judge to do
did
that.
twice. And it's not a situation where you can just go, well, it sucks being in jail. Can you move them? I mean, you have to have something more specific than that, because otherwise every inmate would be going with the same issue and asking the judge. And then the last things are that I'm focused on, and the rest of my staff are focused on, a legal outcome. And quite frankly, the peer supports navigator is focused on this person as a human being in a way that nobody else really is, and asking them things like, how are you feeling? What's going on with your family? How did you sleep last night? How's the food here? And that can pay a lot of dividends in the end. And so that's a little bit of the unique perspective of peer recovery navigator coming into the picture and being a supplement to the defense team.
I will say just one thing about the lived experience. Of course, like any collection of human beings, a public defender's office is no different in the sense that there may be people in there who are in recovery, right? But it's not part of their job description to be in recovery. And if they're going to share the fact that they're in recovery with a client, that's a personal choice. And even if they share that, they're not sharing it as a peer. There's a power dynamic between a client and an attorney, whether we want it to be there or not. So that is an importantly unique part of this role, and again, new for everybody I met in the jails. Speaking of meeting people in jails, with Recovery Corps, whether you're in a PD office or not, they need to collect data. You know, it's a data-driven world, as the people in the AI meeting are learning about now. So one of the ways that we collect data is this recovery capital sheet, okay? How many people have heard of recovery capital? How many people are not listening? Okay. So we get in there, you know, and we're supposed to do this every 2 weeks, right? Which is one of the things that Chad was talking about. We meet them regularly, and much more often and for longer than generally the attorneys do. So one of the things that we do is every couple weeks do this recovery capital sheet, which, you know, is just the box ticking exercise on one level, but on another level, these are opportunities for a conversation about what's going on, you know? So this isn't something we just fly through. And it can be frustrating for these people that are in very stressful, traumatic, uncertain situations to answer these questions, especially if they're in jail for 6 months and they've done it so many times. But it is always an opportunity to speak. And I would say just a couple really important ones for people that are locked up. The first one, there are more important things to me in life than using substances. It's unfortunate, but so many of the people I met in jails would tell me that they were happy to be there because they knew that they'd be dead on the outside. They didn't necessarily want to be in jail. Jail's not a nice place to be. But for them, it saved their lives. And they learn from that period of forced abstinence what else can be more important in their life than using substances. Another would be I take full responsibility for my actions. It is very difficult to convince a prosecutor or a judge that we take accountability for something when we don't even convince ourselves or Tim. And incidentally, taking accountability is a big part of getting a less punitive and more rehabilitative sentence. This one, we talk about quality of life. You know, again, like think about asking people in jail, like, how satisfied are you with your quality of life? You get surprising answers, actually, you know. Or how satisfied are you with the conditions of your living place? Again, it varies. The thing that I think is most important on this slide is I have high self-esteem. I mean, often you get really sad answers to this question, which actually it's not a question, it's a statement. You get sad responses, you know? People, when they're put in a position of being punished, don't tend to feel very good about themselves. But it is exciting to see those numbers go up over time. And this one as well, you know, how confident are you that you'll be able to stay in recovery for the next 90 days? It's beautiful to see that go up. One young lady that I asked about the conditions of her living place at one point, it was getting warm, you know, it was springtime, and like, it was like, you know, she wasn't able to go outside a lot, you know, it's locked up. And even when you do go outside in that jail, it's just like a concrete room with no ceiling. And I was like, you bummed out about that? And she's like, nah, you know, like, this is dipper weather. Dipper smoking weather? Anybody? Smoke dippers in here? It's PCP. It's PCP cigarette. So she associated with the warm weather with the time when she would go outside to smoke PCP, which was how she ended up in there in the first place. And it was painful for her to feel that, you know, because she didn't want to do that anymore. Another thing that I liked about her was as things got better, I would flip this sheet over and she'd just go 5, 5, 5, 5, 10, 10, and we'd be done with it. And she's out now. So it's a useful tool. I'm just going to go through this one real quickly. This is just an example of my to-do list. So you can see this is a young lady we started working with in March. I read the case notes. No, these are the case notes. I started the case notes. I read the file. And then I prepped a folder, which has all the recovery course stuff in it. And we worked with her, this is a client of Chad's, until May. You know, this is a young woman who was not even 20 years old. She had 3 felonies. She's facing a lot of time, a lot of consequences for that. But, you know, this is not the life that she wanted. She wanted to get out of jail, be with her family, get her driver's license. You know, she sees herself as a helpful, honest, direct, trustworthy person. She's got all this support. And, you know, it's our job to do all these things so that we get the story that is able to show that to the court so they make a less punitive decision.
So this client, we had a sentencing memo filed. I went the day before the sentencing hearing to speak with the client, get her prepped for her testimony. I walk in, she does terrible. She gives really short, perfunctory answers, no emotion, almost to the point that it seemed disingenuous that she was asking for treatment rather than further incarceration. So,
At a teenager, this is what he's talking about.
So I walk out of the jail, I call Tim, I say, this did not go well. I'm thinking about scrapping the idea of her testifying altogether because it went so bad. Why don't you come to the courthouse tomorrow? I'll see if the correctional officers will let me put her in an interview room and we can go over this one more time and see if we can get her to just be herself and do better. So Tim shows up that morning, We get her in the room, and because of the time Tim had spent with her and knew about her background, she started to relax a little bit and started being more forthcoming, and she got on the stand that day and she did terrific. It was easy to empathize with her. She explained how her young life was on a trajectory that wasn't where she wanted to be. And keep in mind, we're in front of a judge that's in their 50s or 60s, straight, white man. This young woman is none of those things. Okay, so these two people were able to make an emotional connection with her on the witness stand, and the judge being able to empathize with her and see that she truly wanted treatment, she truly needed help, and that further incarceration wasn't going to accomplish any of that. And we ended up getting a time-served sentence, and she went directly into a treatment center. And I really credit Tim and the whole structure of how the peer recovery navigators work for getting that outcome and getting her to a point where she felt comfortable and relaxed enough to do well in that testimony that day rather than making a total flop.
It was beautiful. And this is in the sticks. We're talking about the Shenandoah Valley. This is the country, you know? So that emotional connection was beautiful to see. And the process of having her come in and prepare for the testimony, what I was doing there is called eliciting. You know, when you're eliciting responses from somebody, you're not trying to tell them what to say. They know what to say. She's going to tell the truth. But, you know, she's a kid and quiet and shy. And she's wearing a jumpsuit and shackles. So one of the keys to eliciting is you have to know that the person knows these answers. And that comes from the relationship that Chad is describing and all that work on this to-do list. It also comes from getting to know her support network, her family, and, you know, checking out that the stuff that she's telling us is true, you know. Another thing that's important is being comfortable with silence. Like this one. So, essentially, as somebody once told me, litigation is a storytelling competition. Who's got the best story? And the purpose of this program inside the office, from a legal perspective, is to get to know the client's story, whether they tell it or we write it in a sentencing memorandum, whether they say it up on the stand like the woman he just described does, whether it involves a whole list of people from their support network to come in and do that either in writing or in person. It is to bring that story out of the jail, from behind the walls, and into the community and into the courtroom so we can liberate not just our clients, but the prosecutors, the judges, the juries from this cage of injustice, oppression, fear, and write a different ending to that story, or at least a different chapter, certainly a different chapter, than might have otherwise happened without this work. So how do we do that? Well, if you want to tell somebody's story, what do you have to do first? Talk to them, and then you have to listen. Exactly. Thank you. So we are going to listen now to a young woman who we worked with for 4 or 5 months last year. This is not a client of Chad's. She was locked up at the time. She went through a series of severe health crises while she was in jail. And with primarily her own resilience and fortitude and just incredible strength, as well as the support of a team of people in the office, myself, the mitigation specialist, paralegal, her attorney, her family, jail staff, community resources, etc., she survived all that. We were trying to get her into recovery court, and that didn't work out. Everybody know what recovery court is? Recovery court is an alternative, it's essentially like a community and court managed intensive outpatient treatment program that lasts for a year or more, where people get phased through as a way of getting charges dropped, essentially. And it's kind of a last resort, usually, for people that are facing a lot of time in prison. And obviously for drug charges. So that didn't work out, and then she ended up in an alternative to incarceration treatment program where she remains. So we had this conversation on April 24th, 2026, just a couple of weeks ago, and I told her about this and that y'all would be here, and she, still going through it. I mean, things are a lot better, but, she's still got a lot going on. But she wanted to speak to y'all because of how she feels about this work. So there's a couple questions you can think about while you're listening. I used to be a teacher, so I have to do this. What 3 adjectives could you use to describe her emotional state? The emotional dimension of recovery, we might be familiar with that. And what goals could you identify from this interview? So when I told her about this, I asked her, the first question was, what do you want to say to the people there? And this is cut up from a longer interview, and we had to de-identify it, so it jumps around a little bit, but it starts off with her answering this question. What do you want to say to the people there?
Probably that I'm not just a statistic. I'm a person, and I've been through a lot in my life, and everything that I've been through in my life has made an impact on me and others, and the criminal justice system, I mean, I did to myself, but I just didn't really have the greatest, the cards that were dealt to me weren't that great, so, I'm sorry, yeah. While I've been here, I have been able to use my time very productively. I have been able to go to classes that I haven't been able to take before, such as criminal substance and conduct. So that was really cool. Help you kind of like navigate why decisions that I have made. The decisions that I have made, why I did. I've also taken a lot of classes with their therapists here. I've taken dialectical behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, parenting. I've taken decision points, relapse prevention, helping women recover. So,
what would you like to say about having somebody there working as a recovery navigator while you were going through what you went through there in the courts up in the Shenandoah Valley?
I don't think I would have made it to where I made it, or I don't think that I would have been able to get through the times that I went through without that help. I really don't. Well, because I went through a lot while I was there, and it was very hard when you are a ward of the state to go through what I went through. So it's hard to get things done time efficiently or humanely.
You're referring to like health issues, right?
Most definitely, yeah.
Yeah. And so how is that different, like going through that without a recovery navigator and with one?
Well, somebody showing up for you that doesn't know exactly what you're going through but can relate, somebody that's empathetic, somebody that can put themselves in your shoes without being there in your shoes, it's life-changing, really. It helps you. Yeah. I hadn't had anybody ever just show up like that. I didn't have to.
What are you looking forward to about getting out?
Well, I'm looking forward to watching my oldest kids go to middle school and being there and taking them shopping, and my youngest son to his first year of the 4th grade, and I being present. My mind, I haven't had this much clean time since I was, 13 years old.
Wow.
So, yeah. I'm an emotional person anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm grateful where I am today.
In the first conversation, we talked about, like, where you would like to go. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Like, what do you mean, like my sentencing or?
No. Like, just in the world.
Pink flamingos in Jamaica. I'll never forget.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
So, is that still part of your plans?
Definitely.
Okay, and who's going to go with you to Jamaica to see the pink flamingos?
My babies.
Okay, all right. What about Mom?
Yeah, Mom can go too, I guess. I'm just kidding. Of course she's going to go.
All right. Anything else you want to say to these people that will be listening?
People like me really need people like you. I think that everybody's story is different, and I just really don't know where I would be today if you wouldn't have stepped into my life. I really don't.
So, thank you to her. 3 adjectives you could use to describe her emotional state. Anybody? Know an adjective? Hello? What? Sorry? Blessed. She's feeling blessed. Good. 2 more. What? Grateful. Hopeful. Yeah. And she's engaged. That's true. In the conversation. Absolutely. And what goals could you identify from this interview? To be a healthy mom. Yeah, that's great. You can feel that. What? Travel. Yeah. The Jamaica thing is hilarious, but I don't have time to tell that whole story. Anything else? Other goals that you could identify? Yeah? Absolutely. Reintegrating with her family unit. Yes. Sounds like she wants to be a very productive member of society. Absolutely. So one of the things that can be challenging about doing this work is identifying goals for people that may feel like they don't have any. So one way to do that is just ask them what you're looking forward to, and then that can be a goal. Now that we've heard from a participant, as they're known in Recovery Corps, we're going to hear a little bit from the other recovery navigators. We're going to run through this real quickly, so don't start feeling like it's time to take a test. There are a few sentences up here from Laura Fears, Bridget Drake, Caressa Bagwell, and Sal DeBrogatis, who are recovery navigators still working here in the state of Virginia in PD offices, and this is what they had to say about it. This is what Abby pulled from the written testimonials that we got from them to share with y'all. As you can see, there's some words at the bottom here, and there's some words missing. So if you look at the top, there's an example, which is written in yellow, and there's words at the bottom. The peer-to-peer is what helped me most in my recovery. Anybody know? Oh, we got it. One thing to remember about public defenders he is a civil servant. He's employed by the Commonwealth of Virginia, paid by the state, right? That's different than a court-appointed attorney that is a private sort of enterprise and does not have usually the staff that we would have in the PD office. And to talk about that, here's Chad.
So there's 4 key roles. The paralegal, that's pretty straightforward. They primarily are doing research and writing. Then the next person is the investigator. Oh, no, the mitigation specialist. So This person is working to generate mitigation. That's a lot of writing, a lot of interviewing people, interviewing loved ones, pulling medical records, reviewing those, and trying to put together enough information to get as good of a sentence as you can. The investigator, that's kind of like a police officer, but they work for the defense. So they're conducting interviews, doing field work. They're out there trying to find an alternative perpetrator or discover that there's a witness the police didn't talk to that knows what really happened, or otherwise bolster the facts we can present at trial or in plea negotiations to get a better outcome. And then the attorney, I think of the attorney as being like the director when you're making a movie. You're orchestrating a bunch of different people that have different roles, and then you're determining what the strategy is and how to execute that strategy. So as you can see, these 4 people, this is prior to the invention of peer recovery specialists. They're primarily focused, again, on the legal outcome, winning the case, getting the best sentence, not necessarily focused on what peer recovery is, such as, how are you doing today? And asking that in a genuine way and getting a response or waiting for that response so the person can, if sometimes, just stop and actually think, how am I actually feeling right now? So, as I've mentioned before, the time and opportunity to work with the clients is definitely an advantage that the peer recovery navigator brings to the scene. I feel like the recovery navigator rounds out the representation because it helps the clients feel much more like they're being treated as human beings and not a number. The navigators have time to, as I was saying, interface with the jail, talk to medical professionals, learn about the client in all the ways that you can learn about another human being. And then, as I described with this young woman that we represented, that connection between the peer recovery navigator and the client often pays dividends in the end because you just learn about this person in a whole new way. And then lastly, I would say it's really a source of inspiration for a lot of the clients. When I would bring Tim into the jail and introduce him for the first time to clients, they would really light up and they would be sort of surprised, like, whoa, this person's in recovery too? And clearly they can see that this person in recovery's life is going in a trajectory that they like, that they're in a position to be able to reach out and help pull other people out of the fire. So that's an aspect that nobody else on the defense team brings.
Chad is talking about paying dividends. I mean, what he's talking about is legal outcomes. You know, so all of this about how somebody's feeling and feeling a connection with another human being it supports them through their recovery and in making the kind of decisions that can lead to better participation in the legal strategy and not making the types of poor decisions that might lead to further charges. So this is life and liberty we're talking about. It makes a difference with. Just quickly, when we do the interviews, the skill that we use is called OARS. We're just going to run through this quick because we're a little behind. You can find this all over. I will just say that for me, summarizing is one of the most important things in this context because people are stressed out, they're freaked out, and they tend to ramble, and you might think that they're emphasizing one thing when really they're focused on another thing. And it really helps to pause at times and summarize back to them just to make sure that you got everything. It also gives me time to make sure my notes are right, you know, which the attorneys need.
All right, so part of the structure of being a recovery navigator in one of our public defender offices is you have 3 supervisors. I know that sounds daunting, it sounds horrible, but it's more so a logistical thing. So they have their program coach through Recovery Corps. They have a site supervisor who's someone actually within their office. It can be someone from a mitigation specialist or even the chief public defender in that office. So you're kind of wondering, what do I do? I'm the reentry recovery supervisor, so I do some of the boring stuff that no one really wants to do, ensuring that we're compliant with our grant, that we follow all the rules, and reporting data, so super exciting stuff. But there's two really key important parts of my job. So one of them being I liaise between the VIDC and Recovery Corps. If anyone in this room has ever worked with more than one organization before in a partnership, I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of confusion and the headache that it can cause. So my role works to mitigate this by being a primary communication between our two organizations and making sure that the program remains in line with our goals and our missions. Additionally, I do provide some supervision. So I have usually virtual. I am located in Henrico, and all the navigators are everywhere within the state of Virginia. So most of our meetings are virtual. We meet weekly. As they get a little more settled, maybe bi-weekly. But we do quarterly site visits where we have more in-depth conversations. These are usually more, we're going to be talking about caseload, but also checking in on their well-being. As we all know, this is a super challenging field. There's a lot of burnout and compassion fatigue. So we really try to have open discussions to try and monitor that. So here's some of our data that we've collected in the time. The beige lines indicate our first year, orange our second year, and yellow is our current year. Please keep in mind, with the yellow data, this is our year to date. We are still in an active grant term, and we have 3 months left, so we're only going to see these numbers continue to grow. But we've been really excited. In the whole time of our program, we've served 798 clients in that time. We've done just under 600 substance use release plans have been created, and about just under 300 individuals have been diverted from incarceration to treatment. Despite all our wins, we still do have a lot of challenges. Every single one of our clients is criminally justice involved. That's why they have a public defender. So one of the biggest things is judicial discretion. So ultimately, a lot of the outcomes that we see are not left to the decision of the navigator or the public defender. It's going to be left up to the judge. The charges of our clients do not have to be substance use related. They can be anything from petty theft to manslaughter. So sometimes that's going to affect if we're going to be able to divert to treatment. Also, we don't know, they might have a criminal background, including sexual offenses or violent offenses. So this is going to affect our ability to get people deferred and diverted and affect sentencing as well. Additionally, a lot of times a client's going to have charges in multiple jurisdictions at once, meaning there's going to be other courts involved that aren't where the public defender is currently working with them. They might have a public defender in that other area, which will make communication a little bit easier, but the biggest challenge we have here is getting all the courts to align on the same page. If we want to do drug court, if we want to divert to treatment, all these courts need to be on the same page, and that is incredibly difficult to achieve. Additionally, criteria for programs such as drug court and first offenders diversion programs, unfortunately, a lot of our clients don't meet the requirements set out to qualify for those. And additionally, we gather a lot of data about what services the individual is receiving. The majority of them are incarcerated. We're going to be limited to what services are provided in that jail. Oftentimes, when it comes to mental health, we're going to be limited to just psychiatric services. Educational and vocational training, there's going to be a lot of variations in what's available. Substance use counseling, mental health help, medications for opiate use disorder is another one that's incredibly challenging because a lot of jails will require you to have an active prescription at the time of intake, which many of our clients do not have. So this, of course, varies jail to jail, but usually we're going to have some struggles there. But there's a lot of wins that the data doesn't show and can't be shown in numbers. Our clients are being given a realistic plan for sustainable recovery beyond their legal outcomes. Whenever a court proceeding is done, the relationship with the public defender is over. However, we specifically wrote in that the navigator can continue that relationship to continue helping the individual with their re-entry. Additionally, autonomy is the key of our program. I'm sure a lot of us know that recovery has higher success rates when the individual has their own choice in their treatment paths. However, historically, especially for criminally justice involved folk, these conversations have happened behind closed doors with a lot of people involved, but often excluding that individual who will actually be living with those decisions. The navigator turns that around. We put that autonomy back with the client. We might have to work within restrictions of what programming might be available, considering charges and criminal history, but we will never make a referral or a decision without the express consent of our client. However, I think the greatest win has been that 798 clients have received meaningful support to address their recovery in a way that they have not before. Many have shared that they have not experienced it before in general, but let alone from a public defender. These are yes. This is 798 people who are provided with compassion and support as opposed to shame and judgment. And additionally, while we have lost some clients along the way, I think that even if we got someone to stay one more day, I think that's always a win. So this program would not survive with all the various roles and the people we've talked about today, kind of like a puzzle. So we all bring our own experiences, professional and personal. I bring my professional experience from working within the Chesterfield Recovery Court, as well as working within the child welfare system. However, I also bring my personal experiences. I have my own family experiences with addiction. I have experienced familial incarceration, and I also lost a dear friend of mine, Sarah, in 2021. I was a couple months away from graduating college at the time, and I was thinking of that big decision everyone has to make of, what the heck am I gonna do? And I might not have made the decision right that day of a specific occupation, but I knew I wanted to do something to try and help others and support them. And it's those experiences that I bring from my life and the memory that I carry for Sarah that drove me to do the work that I do today.
What keeps me doing this work is a confluence of things. One is it's really satisfying to hold the government accountable for misdeeds. So that's always, just an inspiration anytime that gets to happen. The other thing is I've been through enough adversity in life to be able to empathize with people who are struggling. And one of my brothers that I grew up with, he has done every drug known to man and spent quite a bit of time incarcerated. So I watched him be disserved from the educational system when he was in 6th and 7th grade through the healthcare system and through the criminal justice system. So I certainly saw firsthand that people are not getting what they need to become a better human being.
Yeah. I'm just really grateful for Abby and Chad to be here. And thank you. So in my decades of anxiety, suicide, depression, misery, alcoholism, I came to think of it and feel it like a fire. The closer you got to me, the more you got burned. Ask about me. Recovery is how I channel and control that fire. There's fire burning right here in Virginia, every one of these United States. Okay? I don't know exactly who started it. I don't know what's going to be left when it's over. Gratefully, I no longer believe I'm the only one who can put it out. All I do is reach in and pull people out. Whoever, whenever, wherever, however, forever, and for us. That's what this program is about. She said almost 800 people have been supported by this program. We want to push it to 800 million. So, we've just got a couple minutes left. We got started a little bit late. I promise I won't keep y'all from lunch very long. But there are so many of us who could not or would not be here today, right? Those that we have lost, like Abby's friend Sarah, those that we might be afraid to lose, like Chad's brother. So, right now we are going to pause for a minute of silence to feel those of us, our loved ones, that we have lost. If a minute seems like a long time to be silent when you're waiting to go to lunch in this big room, feel those we've lost forever. And maybe a minute won't seem so long. you. So, now, lunch is almost here. What do I mean by us, right? Well, fundamentally, us is every living creature on this dying, delightful, dangerous little planet we're on, right? But more pertinent to this presentation and this conference, us are those of us struggling to survive and their allies pushing for them to thrive, right? But us can also be the people behind badges, in squad cars, in robes. Us, we are in the streets, in the trailers, in the tenements. Some of us are walking out the door. Still us, right? So, if you can feel us, I would like to hear it, okay? So, we are... All right, that was pretty good. I wasn't sure y'all were going to say anything. You were quiet during some of this. So, now, if you can feel those people you lost, I want you to say it with your chest, okay? I want them to hear it that just walked out the door. In the hallway, all around the campus, all around the fan, in these rental spots and restaurants we can't afford anymore or never could. I want them to hear it on Southside, in the Capitol, up 95. Let's rattle the windows of the White House and the Pentagon, okay? Can we rock the boats in Saint-Tropez? Let them know we don't play. Call out Wall Street till we all eat. Let us hear us. In the warehouses, the prisons, the tents that now litter this land. From Hollywood to your neighborhood. We are. We believe. We support. And we love. We love. That's what's up. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Enjoy the conference.